Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I welcome you to English grade 8 video lessons. This is your instructor Zia Hamid. I hope that you're doing well. My dear learners, we are with our unit number 2, greenhouse effect and our world. This is our lecture number 3 with the competency of grammar, and the topic is phrases and clauses. I hope that you are very well aware with phrases and clauses. Now let's see what we are supposed to do in today's lesson by reading our students learning outcome, or SLO. So our SLO is identify and differentiate between a variety of phrases and clauses. First we will try to understand what a phrase and a clause is, and then we will try to differentiate between these two because they are often confused. So I want your attention, and I hope that we will learn more about phrases and clauses in this video lesson. But now here is a vertical linkage of this SLO with the previous grade that you have already gone through. My dear learners, it's time to storm your brains a little bit by using our brainstorming activity. So today we have a question that what is the difference between a clause and a phrase? If you are familiar with these two, you can pause the video, come up with your answers, recall about phrases and clauses along with an example, and now let's move forward. So now let's see what is a phrase. A phrase is a group of related words that does not have a subject doing the action of a verb. So first of all, we know that phrases are actually, a phrase is actually a group of words. There are more than one word included in a phrase. Now let's see that it does not have a subject doing the action of a verb. So whenever you see a phrase, you can easily identify that if there is not a subject, if a group of words is written without any subject, that we can say it's a phrase. Let's take an example. Let's see that there are different types of phrases. Now, they are noun phrase, a phrase built around a single noun. Let's understand it by an example. I've been reading about melting ice caps. So ice cap is a noun phrase. Let's see verb phrase, a phrase that is the verbal part of a clause. For example, we are experiencing intense heat waves. This part is the verb. Experiencing something is a verb, hence we can call this a verb phrase. For adjective phrase, a phrase built around an adjective, like Australia has been dealing with hotter heat waves. So hotter heat waves, this part is explaining the intensity of the heat waves. This is an adjective, hence we will call this adjective phrase. For adverbial phrase, we know it's about adverb, a phrase built around an adverb by adding words before and or after it. For example, these gases trap heat from the sun. So this tells us the adverb of place, so we can call this an adverbial phrase. Prepositional phrase is a phrase where a preposition comes at the beginning. For example, this leads to global warming, changing our planet's climate. So to global warming, because this is starting with a preposition, hence we will call this a prepositional phrase. So to global warming is a prepositional phrase. Now if a phrase has a noun and it's explaining the noun or telling something about noun, we can call it a phrase, noun phrase like ice caps, caps made of ice. We can call this a noun phrase. Similarly, we have verb phrase, adjective, adverbial, and prepositional phrase. Now, we have learned about different types of phrases. Let's talk about clauses now. Let's read the definition. A clause is a group of words containing a subject and a predicate, functioning as part of a sentence. So, unlike phrases, now in clause we have a subject and a predicate. It acts like a sentence, but we call it a clause. Now, we know that we have two different type of clauses, dependent and independent clause. Let's see independent clause first. An independent clause is a full sentence. It does not need to be joined to any other clauses because it contains all the information necessary to be a complete sentence. This is why we call it independent, because it does not need any clause to make sense. Now here with our dependent clause, let's read it. A dependent clause, also known as a subordinate clause, is a group of words that contains both a subject and a verb but cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. Now, the reason why we call it a dependent clause is because it is dependent on some other thing, an other chunk or a clause. That's why we call it dependent clause. If we read a dependent clause, we cannot get the idea that what is being talked about. It needs something to depend on to make a complete sense. So this is the difference between dependent and independent clause. Now let's learn from some examples from your book, page 14. Climate change happens for many reasons. Now, if you take this clause, we have a subject and also a verb. But this is an independent clause because we are understanding the meaning. We know that climate change happens for many reasons. So, we have a subject and also a predicate. Hence, it is an independent clause. Now, and one more important factor is the greenhouse effect. Now, if you read this chunk, this clause, we are not getting the full idea. We need some more information. Hence, we will call this our dependent clause. Because if you just read this, and one important factor is the greenhouse effect, we need some information before it to understand that what are we talking about. So now we know that we need some information. That's why this will be called dependent clause. It does not have any subject and a predicate. Now here we have some mixture of phrases and clauses. You have to read them and identify them, that whether it's a phrase or a clause, and you can write them in your notebook. Now, here are the answers. We have a simulation video for your understanding about phrases and clauses. Moving forward, let's see what we have for our classroom activity. This is from page 14. It says, read the text of the lesson, highlight dependent and independent clauses from it, and write them in your notebook. So this will be your classroom activity that you will solve. We have another question, number D, for you from page 14. Now, a worksheet is attached for your better understanding and your practice. You can get them from your teacher. It's easily available in the resource pack. in the resources. Now, for your homework from page 14, we have a very interesting activity. You have to write 5 noun and adjectival phrases in your notebook. You have to write adjectival and noun phrases. You can also make more sentences and also more examples. Now, we are here at the end of our lesson with some resources attached for your help: skill sheet, worksheet, a question bank, presentation, and finally a lesson plan. All these are available. You can access them from the link of the description of this video. Thank you for listening, my dear learners. I hope that you had a good time learning about and also recalling about phrases and clauses. We read the definition, we identified them, and then we differentiated between these two along with examples from the book and also some other real life examples. Till the next video lesson, this is your instructor Zia Hamid. I hope that you stay healthy and stay well. Allah Hafiz.